The starship's scientific glory moved through space like a silver needle threading through black cloth. Inside its white corridors, Dr. Cathara adjusted her 4 sets of arms and checked the sensor readings one more time. Her insect-like eyes reflected the blue glow of the control screens as she studied the data that had brought them to this forgotten corner of the galaxy. "Still getting those strange energy readings, Doctor?" asked Lieutenant Vextar, his scaled green skin catching the light as he leaned over her shoulder. The reptilian officer had been skeptical about this mission from the start. "Yes, and they're getting stronger," Cathara replied, her voice carrying the clicking accent of her people. "The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases. They're coming from the 3rd planet in this system." She pointed one of her 4 hands at the main screen, where a blue and green world slowly rotated. It looked peaceful and beautiful, but the galactic records marked it as completely dead. The star charts called it Earth, listed as lifeless for over 600,000 years. Captain Morvac entered the bridge, his massive frame filling the doorway. The bear-like alien commanded respect from every species in the crew. His people, the Ursinian, were known throughout the galaxy for their strength and wisdom. "What have we found?" Morvac asked, his deep voice rumbling through the bridge. "Something that shouldn't exist," Cathara answered. "This planet was surveyed 3 times over the past 500,000 years. Every report says the same thing: no life, no technology, nothing but rock and water. But look at these readings." She touched the screen and waves of data flowed across it. Energy patterns danced in colors that had no names, showing power levels that should have been impossible for a dead world. "Could be natural phenomena," suggested Dr. Yiphar, the ship's science officer. The small, gray-skinned humanoid always looked for simple explanations first. "Maybe mineral deposits creating electromagnetic fields?" "No," Cathara said firmly. "These patterns are too organized, too controlled. Something is generating this energy, and it's something big." Engineer Kolrim floated nearby, his gas-filled body shifting colors as he thought. His people lived in the clouds of gas giants and understood energy better than most species. "The power output is enormous," he said, his voice like wind through crystals. "Whatever is down there could power 100 cities." Captain Morvac studied the planet on the screen. Earth hung in space like a jewel, its surface covered with swirling white clouds. The records say this system had intelligent life once, a species called humans. They supposedly died out when their star began to expand. "That was over 600,000 years ago," Vextar said. "No species could survive that long without leaving traces we could detect." But as the scientific glory moved closer to Earth, the energy readings grew stronger. The planet's surface showed no signs of cities or technology from space, but the sensors told a different story. Deep beneath the oceans and mountains, vast networks of machinery hummed with power. "I'm detecting movement," reported Ensign Trillin from the sensor station. The young officer's tentacles moved quickly over the controls as new data appeared. Multiple contacts rising from the planet's surface. "Ships?" Captain Morvac asked. "No, sir. Structures, buildings, they're coming up from underground." The crew watched in amazement as the planet below them began to change. Across every continent, gleaming towers rose from the earth like flowers blooming in fast motion. What had looked like empty wilderness moments before now sparkled with millions of lights. "By the ancient codes," whispered Dr. Yiphar, "the planet is alive." "Not just alive," Cathara said, her voice filled with wonder and growing concern. "It's waking up." The transformation was beautiful and terrifying. Cities emerged from hidden places beneath the ground. Massive domes broke through the ocean surface, shedding water like giants rising from a bath. The energy readings climbed higher and higher until the ship's sensors struggled to measure them. "Captain," called Lieutenant Vextar, "we're receiving a signal." "From where?" "From everywhere. The entire planet is transmitting." The main screen flickered and a face appeared. It was clearly alien to the crew, but in a subtle way. The being looked almost like Dr. Yiphar's people, but different. Taller, with longer limbs and strange hair growing from its head. Its eyes were small and round, and when it spoke it showed white teeth. "Greetings," the being said in perfect galactic standard. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force. Welcome to the Sol System." The bridge fell silent. Dr. Yiphar's gray skin turned almost white. Even Captain Morvac's massive form seemed to shrink slightly. "Human?" Cathara whispered. "But humans are extinct." The woman on the screen smiled, and somehow that expression was more unsettling than any weapon. "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. We've been sleeping, not dead, and now we're awake. Sleeping for 600,000 years? Captain Morvac found his voice. That's impossible. Many things seem impossible until they happen, Sarah Chen replied. Your ship's records identify you as the scientific glory from the Zephyrian Empire. Dr. Kethara, Lieutenant Vextar, Captain Morvac. We know who you are. How could you possibly, Vextar began. We've been listening to your communications since you entered our system. We've also accessed your ship's computer network and downloaded your databases. Please don't take offense. We needed to understand what has happened in the galaxy during our absence. Engineer Cole Ream's gaseous body turned dark red, a sign of extreme agitation among his people. They hacked our systems? Our computers have the best security in the galaxy. Had, Sarah Chen corrected gently. You had good security. Technology advances even during very long naps. Dr. Kethara leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. How did you survive your star's expansion? How did you hide an entire civilization? We didn't hide it, the human replied. We moved it. Underground, under the oceans, into spaces between spaces. When we realized our sun was dying, we made a choice. Instead of running to other worlds like most species do, we decided to save our world. Save a dying world? Captain Morvac shook his head. Even the most advanced species can't restart a star. We didn't restart it. We waited for it to finish its expansion phase and begin to stabilize. While we slept, our machines worked. They rebuilt our atmosphere, restored our oceans, and prepared our world for our return. It took longer than we hoped, but time means little when you're not awake to experience it. The human's image smiled again, and this time it seemed warmer, less threatening. We have much to discuss. 600,000 years is a long time, and we have many questions about what the galaxy has become. But first, there's something you should know. What? Kethara asked. According to your databases, the Zephyrian Empire has claimed our solar system as territory. They plan to strip mine our planets for resources. Sarah Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her voice grew harder. We're going to need to talk about that. The screen went dark, leaving the crew of the Scientific Glory staring at their own reflections. Around them, the planet Earth continued its awakening, and energy readings climbed toward levels that shouldn't have been possible. Captain Morvac was the first to break the silence. Send a message to Fleet Command. Priority Alpha. What should I tell them, sir? Asked the communications officer. Morvac looked at the planet below, where millions of lights now sparkled like stars brought down to Earth. Tell them we found something. Tell them the humans aren't extinct. He paused, watching more structures rise from the planet's surface. And tell them we might have made a very big mistake. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in chambers that had been dark for 6 centuries, lights began to flicker on. The awakening had started 3 days ago, and now the first humans were opening their eyes to a changed galaxy. Marcus Webb felt the cold metal of the revival chamber against his back as consciousness slowly returned. The drugs that had kept him alive during the long sleep were leaving his system, replaced by new chemicals that sharpened his mind and strengthened his body. He was a guardian, one of the enhanced humans chosen to wake first and assess any threats to their sleeping people. Status report, he said, his voice rough from disuse. The words came automatically, trained into him before the great sleep began. All systems green, Guardian Webb, replied the artificial intelligence that had watched over them. Awakening proceeding on schedule. First contact with alien vessel completed. Commander Chen is handling diplomatic protocols. Marcus sat up slowly, his enhanced muscles responding perfectly despite the long rest. Around him, other Guardian pods were opening. Men and women who had volunteered to be changed, to be made into something more than human so they could protect humanity when they woke. Threats? He asked. Unknown. The alien vessel appears to be a science ship, but our analysis of galactic databases shows concerning information. The Zephyrian Empire claims ownership of our solar system. Marcus smiled grimly as he stood. His body felt strong, enhanced by 600,000 years of technological improvement. The machines had not just kept them alive, they had made them better. Then we have work to do. 2 hours later, Marcus materialized on the bridge of the Scientific Glory. The aliens jerked back in surprise as he appeared out of thin air, but he raised his hands peacefully. Please remain calm, he said in perfect galactic standard. I'm here to talk. Dr. Kethara's forearms moved nervously as she stared at him. How did you get aboard our ship? Our shields are very good, Marcus agreed. But we've had a long time to study quantum transportation. I'm not here as a threat. I'm here because we need to understand each other. Captain Morvac stepped forward, his massive frame tense. You're human? I am. My name is Marcus Webb, Guardian of the Human Defense Force. I serve as a first contact specialist. He looked around the bridge, taking in the mix of species. You represent 5 different peoples, each with their own cultures and needs. That's good. Diversity makes us stronger, Guardian, Lieutenant Vextar asked. What does that mean? It means I was chosen to protect humanity while they sleep and to evaluate threats when they wake. It also means I've been improved. Marcus held up his hand, and the aliens watched as his skin briefly became transparent, revealing the advanced technology flowing through his veins. Impossible, whispered Dr. Yiphar. No species can integrate technology so completely with biology. We learned many things during our long sleep, Marcus replied. Our machines kept working, kept learning, kept improving. We didn't just survive, and we evolved. Engineer Colrim's gaseous form shifted colors rapidly. The energy readings from your planet. How much power do you have access to? Enough, Marcus said simply. Your databases tell us that the galaxy runs on scarcity, that species fight over resources, territory, energy. We solved those problems long ago. Solved them how? Dr. Cathara leaned forward, her scientific mind overriding her fear. By learning to work with reality instead of against it. Your ships push against space to move. Ours convince space to bring us where we want to go. Your power comes from burning matter. Ours comes from the space between atoms. Your weapons destroy. Ours, well, let's hope we don't need to discuss our weapons. Captain Morvac's expression grew serious. Is that a threat? No, Marcus said firmly. It's a hope. We've seen your history, Captain. 600,000 years of wars, conquered species, destroyed worlds. We don't want to add to that cycle. Then what do you want? Vextar demanded. To go home, to rebuild our civilization, to live in peace. Marcus paused, his expression growing harder. But according to your Empire's laws, we don't own our own planet anymore. Earth has been claimed by the Zephyrian Empire for resource extraction. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew the implications. The Empire's resource extraction meant complete stripping of a planet's materials. Everything from the surface to the core would be taken, leaving behind empty space. That claim was made legally, Captain Morvac said carefully. The planet was surveyed and found to be uninhabited. Because we were asleep, Marcus replied. Does sleep invalidate our right to exist? Dr. Cathara's forehands moved in complex patterns, a sign of deep thought among her people. The law is clear. An uninhabited world can be claimed after proper survey and waiting periods. And if the inhabitants return, the law doesn't cover that situation. Marcus nodded slowly. Then we have a problem. Because we're not leaving, and we won't allow our world to be destroyed. But we also don't want to fight. You may not have a choice, Vextar said. The Zephyrian Empire doesn't negotiate with inferior species. Inferior? Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting word choice. Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarms began blaring. The tactical display lit up with new contacts, dozens of ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Zephyrian fleet, reported the sensor officer. 50 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. They're moving toward Earth. Captain Morvac's face went pale. Fleet Command received our message faster than expected. Marcus remained calm as he studied the display. 50 ships. That's their response to first contact with a new species? They don't take chances with potential threats, Dr. Cathara said quietly. I see. Marcus touched something on his wrist, and his voice carried to every ship in the fleet. Zephyrian vessels, this is Guardian Marcus Webb of the Human Defense Force. You are approaching our sovereign territory. Please state your intentions. The reply came quickly, broadcast on all frequencies. Human vessel. This is Admiral Thexcon of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You will surrender immediately and submit to Imperial authority. This system belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. Marcus sighed. Admiral, with respect, this system belongs to humanity. We are its native inhabitants. We're willing to discuss our mutual interests, but we will not surrender our home. You are in violation of Imperial law, the Admiral replied. Surrender now or face the consequences. What consequences? Marcus asked. Complete destruction of your civilization. The bridge of the scientific glory was dead silent. Everyone understood what they were witnessing. The moment when first contact turned into a declaration of war. Marcus looked around at the alien faces surrounding him. I want you to understand something. We don't want to fight. We've spent 600,000 years learning to build, not destroy. But we will defend ourselves. Against 50 warships? Captain Morvac asked. How many ships do you have? Marcus smiled sadly. We have one ship ready for combat. The rest of our fleet is still sleeping, like most of our people. One ship against 50? Dr. Yiphar's gray skin turned almost white. That's suicide. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But you should know something about humans, Dr. Yiphar. We've never been very good at accepting impossible odds. He touched his wrist again and his image appeared on the main screen of every ship in the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Thexcon, I'm going to give you one last chance. Leave our system peacefully and we can discuss this situation through proper diplomatic channels. Negative, came the Admiral's voice. You have 10 minutes to surrender. Unconditionally. Marcus nodded to the crew of the Scientific Glory. You might want to back away from Earth. What happens next is going to be one educational. As the aliens watched, a single human ship rose from Earth's surface. It was small compared to the Zephyrian dreadnoughts, sleek and white like a piece of carved ivory. It moved toward the approaching fleet with no apparent weapons, no visible shields, no signs of the massive firepower needed to face 50 warships. Guardian Webb, Dr. Cathara said quietly. Are you certain about this? Marcus looked at the approaching fleet, then at Earth hanging peaceful and blue behind them. Doctor, there's something you should know about humanity. We spent 600,000 years learning to sleep. But we also spent that time learning to wake up angry. The human ship reached the fleet's position and stopped, floating motionless in space like a white dove surrounded by birds of prey. Admiral Thexcon's voice echoed across the communication channels. Your time is up. All ships open fire. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with everything they had. 50 warships unleashed their weapons at once. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains, particle beams that split atoms, missiles that bent space around their targets. The combined firepower could have destroyed a small moon. The human ship called Lazarus sat motionless in the storm of destruction, and nothing touched it. Impossible, whispered Admiral. Thexcon aboard his flagship Imperial. Might. His crystalline features reflected the light from his tactical displays as he watched his fleets. Weapons slide around the human vessel like water flowing around a stone. Sir, reported his weapons officer. Our targeting systems can't lock onto the enemy ship. It's there, but our computers act like it doesn't exist. Fire manually. Saturation bombardment. Fill that entire area with death. The fleet tried again. This time they didn't aim at the ship. They aimed at the space around it. Thousands of weapons created a sphere of destruction kilometers wide. When the light faded, the Lazarus hung in the center, completely undamaged. Aboard the Scientific Glory, Dr. Cathara stared at her sensor readings in disbelief. The energy levels. It's like they're using a controlled black hole for defense. Marcus Webb smiled grimly. Close, we call it a displacement field. Your weapons are hitting us. They're just hitting us in a different dimension. That's impossible, Engineer Colrim protested, his gaseous form turning dark purple with stress. The energy requirements alone would be impossible for your technology, Marcus agreed. We learned to think bigger during our long sleep. The human ship began to move. It didn't accelerate like normal vessels. It simply appeared in new positions, teleporting through space faster than the eye could follow. As it moved, it began to respond to the Zephyrian attack. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for thousands of years. The Lazarus didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, it reached out with beams of pure force that grabbed the Zephyrian ships like invisible hands. One by one, the massive warships simply stopped working. Their engines died, their weapons powered down, their life support systems failed. Report, Admiral Thexcon shouted as his own ship's lights began to flicker. Sir, something is interfering with our quantum processors. Our computers they're being rewritten. All our systems are shutting down. Switch to backup systems. Sir, the backups are failing too. Whatever this is, it's not just jamming us. It's changing our technology at the molecular level. The Admiral watched in horror as ship after ship in his fleet went dark. The humans weren't destroying them. They were simply turning them off like old machines that had outlived their usefulness. "All ships," he broadcast, "prepare for ramming speed. If we can't shoot them, we'll crush them." 3 dreadnoughts turned toward the Lazarus, their massive hulls accelerating to collision course. Each ship massed more than a small asteroid, carrying enough kinetic energy to shatter continents. The human ship waited until the last possible moment, then did something that broke every law of physics the Zephyrians understood. It became partially transparent and let the dreadnoughts pass right through it. "Phase shifting," Marcus explained to the stunned crew of the Scientific Glory. "Matter is mostly empty space anyway. We just taught our ship to use the empty parts." But the human response was far from over. As the Zephyrian ships passed through the Lazarus, something changed in their hulls. The metal began to reshape itself, flowing like liquid. Within minutes, the 3 dreadnoughts had been transformed into perfect spheres, their weapons and engines relocated to the outside surface in completely random arrangements. "We call that molecular restructuring," Marcus said conversationally. "Very handy for turning weapons into art projects." Admiral Thexcon's voice cracked as he spoke into his communicator. "All remaining ships retreat. Full-speed emergency protocols." But the remaining ships couldn't move. They hung in space like toys forgotten by a child, their crews trapped inside vessels that no longer responded to any commands. "Admiral," came Commander Chen's voice over the communication channel, "we tried to warn you. Now we need to have a serious conversation." The Admiral's image appeared on the main screen, his crystalline features showing fear for the first time in his military career. What are you?" "We're humans," Sarah Chen replied from the bridge of the Lazarus. "We're a species that learned patience. We're also a species that learned to defend ourselves very, very well. This is impossible. No single ship can defeat an entire fleet. You're thinking too small, Admiral. This isn't one ship defeating 50 ships. This is one ship choosing not to destroy 50 ships. There's a difference." As if to prove her point, power began returning to the Zephyrian vessels. Life support came back online, lights flickered on, and communication systems restored themselves. But the weapons remained dead, and the engines stayed offline. "We're going to let you go," Commander Chen continued. "You're going to return to your empire and deliver a message. Earth belongs to humanity. We didn't claim it, we never left it. And we're not going anywhere." "The Empire will never accept this," Admiral Thexcon said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The Empire will learn to accept many new things," Chen replied, "because we're not the only ones who've been sleeping." Before the Admiral could ask what she meant, the space around Earth began to change. Energy readings spiked across the electromagnetic spectrum as massive structures rose from the planet's surface. Not buildings, weapons. Defensive systems built into the very geology of the world. Mountains split open to reveal energy cannons the size of cities. Ocean floors lifted up, exposing launch tubes for missiles that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. The planet's magnetic field itself began to pulse with controlled power. "By the ancient gods," whispered Dr. Yiphar, "the entire planet is a fortress." "Not a fortress," Marcus corrected. "A guardian. Earth doesn't just support life, Earth protects life. We spent 600,000 years teaching our world to take care of itself." The planet's defensive systems powered up with a sound that could be felt rather than heard. Every Zephyrian in the fleet understood immediately that they were looking at weapons that could sterilize star systems. "This is your choice, Admiral," Commander Chen said quietly. "You can report back to your empire that humanity has returned and wishes to live in peace. Or you can report that humanity has returned and is prepared for war. We prefer peace, but we're ready for either option." Admiral Thexcon looked at his tactical displays, at his disabled fleet, at the planet bristling with impossible weapons. I understand. Good. We're restoring full power to your ships now. You'll find your weapons and engines work normally, except they won't function within our solar system. We've made some adjustments to your quantum processors that prevent hostile actions near Earth. You changed our computers permanently? Think of it as a safety feature, like a lock that prevents accidents. Chen's voice carried a hint of amusement. "Don't worry, Admiral. Your ships will work perfectly everywhere else in the galaxy, just not here and not against human vessels." Power flowed back into the Zephyrian fleet. Engines came online, navigation systems responded, but when weapons officers tried to test their guns, nothing happened. "You have 12 hours to leave our system," Commander Chen announced. "Use that time to think about what you've seen here. The galaxy is about to change, Admiral. The question is whether that change happens peacefully or violently. Admiral Thexcon's fleet began moving toward the edge of the solar system, their ships limping away from Earth like wounded animals. As they reached the boundary of human space, the Lazarus sent one final message. Tell your empire that humanity offers friendship to all who want it, but for those who prefer conquest. The message paused, and when it continued, there was steel in the human voice. Well, you've seen what happens to conquerors here. The Zephyrian fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared, leaving behind only empty space and the echoes of weapons that had failed to fire. Marcus Webb looked at the crew of the Scientific Glory and smiled. That went better than expected. Better? Dr. Cathara's forearms waved in distress. You just defeated the most powerful fleet in this sector without firing a single shot. Exactly, Marcus replied. No one died today. No ships were destroyed. The Admiral and his crews get to go home to their families. That's what we call a good day. Captain Morvac shook his massive head. The Empire will send more ships. Bigger fleets. They'll call in allies. Probably, Marcus agreed. But they'll also start asking questions. Like how we did what we did, and what else we might be capable of. And whether making enemies of us is really worth it. He moved toward the exit, then paused. Dr. Cathara, would you and your crew like to see Earth? We have much to discuss, and I think it's time the galaxy learned what humanity has become. As the Scientific Glory followed the Lazarus toward the blue and green world, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that they had just witnessed the end of one age and the beginning of another. Behind them, space remained empty except for a few pieces of debris from weapons that had failed to reach their target. But ahead of them, Earth waited, ancient, patient, and now fully awake. News of the Battle of Sol spread across the galaxy faster than wildfire. Within days, every major government knew that humanity had returned from extinction and defeated the Zephyrian Empire's best fleet without destroying a single ship. The implication sent shockwaves through centuries of established power. On the crystalline world of Zephyr Prime, Emperor Kexthul called an emergency session of his war council. His palace, carved from living crystal that sang with each breath of wind, had never hosted such a desperate gathering. Explain to me, the Emperor said, his voice making the crystal walls ring like bells, how 50 of our finest warships were defeated by a single vessel the size of a patrol boat. Admiral Thexcon stood before the council, his once proud bearing reduced to nervous trembling. Your Majesty, their technology is beyond our understanding. They manipulate space itself, alter matter at will, and their weapons. He paused, struggling for words. They didn't use weapons, sire. They simply turned off our ships like children's toys. Impossible, declared General Vorthak, the Empire's chief military strategist. No species can advance that far. Our scientists estimate it would take millions of years to develop such capabilities. They had 600,000 years, the Admiral replied quietly, and they spent all of it learning. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, the Vorth hegemony was holding its own crisis meetings. Their biomechanical cities pulsed with nervous energy as the collective consciousness that ruled them processed the implications of humanity's return. The Overmind, a vast biological computer that served as their leader, spoke through 1,000 voices at once. This changes everything. If humans can defeat Zephyrian fleets so easily, what does that mean for the balance of power? What does that mean for us? But the most significant meeting was taking place in the Galactic Neutral Zone, aboard the massive space station that served as the Galactic Council's headquarters. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in emergency session, their voices filling the great chamber with 12 different languages and 1,000 different fears. Dr. Cathara stood at the center of the chamber, her forearms moving as she addressed the assembly. She had become humanity's unofficial introduction to galactic society, the first alien to witness their awakening. Honored representatives, she began, I have seen Earth with my own eyes. I have walked in their cities and spoken with their leaders. What I tell you now is not speculation, it is fact. The chamber fell silent. Species that had been enemies for millennia listened with the same rapt attention. Humanity has not just survived, Cathara continued. They have transcended. Their technology operates on principles we are only beginning to understand. They can manipulate matter and energy in ways that seem like magic. But more importantly, they have evolved beyond our concepts of scarcity and competition. Ambassador Yithran of the Crystalline Collective raised one of his geometric appendages. What do you mean by evolved? I mean they no longer think the way we do. They don't see resources as limited. They don't view other species as competitors. They have solved the fundamental problems that drive galactic conflict. How? Demanded war leader Grakthos of the Militant Alliance. What solutions could possibly end the need for territorial expansion? Before Cathara could answer, the chamber's main screen flickered to life. A human face appeared, not the military bearing of Commander Chen or Guardian Webb, but an older woman with kind eyes and silver hair that seemed to catch light in impossible ways. Honorable representatives, the woman said. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I serve as humanity's ambassador to the galactic community. I understand you have questions about our capabilities and intentions. The chamber erupted in voices as hundreds of species tried to speak at once. Dr. Vasquez waited patiently until silence returned. First, let me address your fears. We are not conquerors. We have no interest in ruling other species or claiming territory that belongs to others. Earth is our home and Earth is enough for us. But your military capabilities, began someone from the crowd, are defensive, Dr. Vasquez finished. We developed them because we knew we might face exactly this situation, returning to a galaxy that had forgotten us and claimed our world. We hoped for peace, but we prepared for war. Admiral Thexcon's image appeared on a secondary screen as he joined the session from Zephyr Prime. Dr. Vasquez, your ships use technology that violates known physical laws. How is that possible? The human ambassador smiled. Admiral, our understanding of physical laws has grown considerably during our long sleep. What you call impossible, we call Tuesday afternoon. She gestured, and the screen behind her changed to show images of Earth. But this wasn't the Earth that the galactic surveys had recorded. This world gleamed with cities that seemed grown rather than built, with gardens that bloomed in impossible colors, with towers that twisted through dimensions the viewers couldn't even perceive. We offer this to the galaxy, Dr. Vasquez said simply. Not conquest, not subjugation, but elevation. We can teach you to transcend the limitations that have trapped your civilizations in cycles of conflict for millions of years. What kind of limitations? Asked Counselor Murdoch of the Aquatic Federation. Scarcity, entropy, death itself. The human's words sent ripples of shock through the chamber. We have learned to work with the fundamental forces of reality instead of struggling against them. We can show you how to create energy from vacuum fluctuations, how to manipulate space to make distance meaningless, how to enhance your biology to eliminate aging and disease. The price? War leader Grakthos demanded. No deal in galactic history had ever been offered without cost. The end of warfare is a solution to problems, the recognition that all sapient life has value, the willingness to grow beyond your current limitations. Dr. Vasquez's expression grew serious. We won't force this on anyone, but we also won't allow the continued exploitation of weaker species by stronger ones. The chamber filled with urgent conversations as species representatives consulted with their governments. The implications were staggering. An end to resource wars, to territorial disputes, to the endless cycle of conquest and rebellion that had defined galactic civilization. But in the darker corners of the galaxy, other forces were stirring. The Vorth hegemony's biomechanical fleets began mobilizing in secret. Their collective consciousness had reached a decision. If humanity offered transcendence, then humanity represented an existential threat to their way of life. We are perfection, the Overmind declared through its 1,000 voices. We have achieved the ultimate fusion of biology and technology. We will not be superseded by sleeping primitives who claim to have surpassed us. Similar reactions echoed across the galaxy. Some species embraced humanity's offer with enthusiasm, seeing it as salvation from millennia of struggle. Others, particularly those who had built their power on the exploitation of weaker civilizations, saw it as the end of their dominance. Dr. Cathara found herself in an unusual position as the first alien to befriend humanity. Species from across the galaxy sought her out, wanting to understand these mysterious returned humans. What are they really like? Asked Ambassador Fluix of the Gas Giant Collective during a private meeting. Beyond their technology, what drives them? Cathara considered the question carefully. They are curious. They ask questions about everything. They want to understand how we think, how we live, what makes us happy or sad. And they listen, really listen, to the answers. That's unusual, Fluix observed. Most powerful species only pretend to care about others' opinions. That's what makes them different. They genuinely believe that every species has something valuable to offer. They see diversity as strength, not weakness. But even as some embraced humanity's message, others prepared for war. Secret fleets gathered in hidden systems. Ancient weapons were awakened from long storage. Alliances formed between species that had been enemies for centuries, united now by their fear of human transcendence. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. On one side lay the promise of elevation beyond current limitations, of cooperation replacing competition, of abundance replacing scarcity. On the other side lay the familiar patterns of conflict and domination that had defined galactic civilization for millions of years. Dr. Vasquez concluded her address to the Galactic Council with words that would be remembered for millennia. We offer you a choice, not an ultimatum. You can continue as you have for millions of years, fighting over limited resources, conquering weaker species, watching civilizations rise and fall in endless cycles. Or you can join us in building something new. She paused, her image seeming to look directly at each viewer, despite the impossibility of that across thousands of screens. But understand this. We will not allow the old ways to continue unchallenged. The age of exploitation is ending, whether peacefully or otherwise. The only question is how much suffering there will be during the transition. As the transmission ended, the galaxy began to choose sides. Some species sent ambassadors to Earth, eager to learn humanity's secrets. Others began preparing weapons for a war they knew they might not survive. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after humanity's ultimatum to the galaxy, the largest military force in recorded history assembled in the Void Reaches, a region of empty space between the spiral arms. The Vorth hegemony had convinced dozens of species to join their cause, united by fear of human dominance and unwillingness to change their ways. The Overmind's collective consciousness spoke through Admiral Gorthak as he addressed the massive fleet. Today we end the human threat before it can destroy our civilizations. We are the pinnacle of evolution. Biological perfection merged with technological supremacy. We will not bow to primitives who slept through their own extinction. The combined fleet was a terrifying sight. Thousands of warships from species across the galaxy, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to crack planets and sterilize star systems. Biomechanical creatures the size of cities floated alongside crystal ships that sang with deadly harmonics. This was war on a scale the galaxy had never seen. But as they prepared to jump toward Earth, space around them began to change. Dr. Kethara stood on the observation deck of the Scientific Glory, now serving as a neutral observer vessel. Beside her, Marcus Webb watched the enemy fleet with calm eyes. "Will you be able to stop them?" she asked. Her forearms moved nervously as she counted the enemy ships, far more than had attacked Earth before. "We won't have to," Marcus replied quietly. "We're not alone anymore." As if summoned by his words, ships began appearing throughout the Void Reaches. But these weren't human vessels. They were something else entirely. Ancient designs that seemed to bend light around them. Ships that looked grown rather than built. Vessels that moved like living creatures through space. "By the eternal void," whispered Captain Morvac from the bridge. "Those are architect ships. But the architects disappeared 1,000,000 years ago." "They didn't disappear," Marcus said. "They went to sleep just like we did. And just like us, they've been waiting for the right time to wake up." The legendary architects had been myths to most species, ancient beings who supposedly created the first faster-than-light drives and taught younger species to reach the stars. Their ships were works of art that made even advanced technology look primitive, but they weren't the only ones arriving. From hidden places throughout the galaxy, ancient species emerged from their long slumber. The gardeners who had seeded life on 1,000 worlds arrived in vessels that looked like living trees made of starlight. The dreamers who had explored the spaces between realities appeared in ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "We are the awakened," came a voice that spoke directly into every mind in both fleets. "We are the species who chose evolution over domination, growth over conquest, patience over aggression. And we have been waiting." Admiral Gorthak's biomechanical form trembled as he stared at the tactical displays. His fleet of thousands was suddenly outnumbered by beings whose technology made his weapons look like stone knives. "This changes nothing," the Overmind declared through him. "We are still the strongest force in the galaxy. We will not be intimidated by ancient relics." "Then you have learned nothing," replied Dr. Elena Vasquez as her image appeared on every screen in both fleets. "This was never about strength. It was never about who could build the biggest weapons or command the largest armies." The human ambassador looked tired but determined as she continued. "You still think in terms of winners and losers, conquerors and conquered. But we're offering you something different, the chance to transcend those limitations entirely." "We reject your offer," the Overmind responded. "We are perfection. We need no improvement." "Then you choose extinction," said another voice, ancient and sad. The speaker was an architect, its form barely visible even on screen, as if it existed partially in other dimensions. "We offered the same choice to 1,000 species over the millennia. Most chose growth. Some chose stagnation. Those who chose stagnation are gone now, remembered only in the cosmic dust." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Vorth hegemony and their allies attacked with everything they had. Weapons that tore holes in space, biological horrors that consumed energy itself, crystal ships that sang reality apart at the quantum level. The Awakened didn't fight back. They simply contained the violence. Every weapon that fired found its energy redirected into harmless light shows. Every missile that launched discovered its target had moved to a parallel dimension. Every ship that charged forward ran into barriers that existed in the spaces between thoughts, you see, Dr. Vasquez said as the futile battle raged around them. "Violence has become irrelevant. Your weapons cannot touch us because we have learned to step outside the reality where violence exists." But the true transformation began when individual ships in the enemy fleet started to surrender, not to humanity or the Awakened, but to the possibility of something better. Captain Vexi Tara of the Zephyrian destroyer Crystal Blade was the first. She had watched her empire's best fleet defeated without a shot being fired, and now she saw 1,000-year-old legends treating her species' weapons like children's toys. "This is Captain Vextara to all awakened vessels," she broadcast. We want to learn. We want to understand. Can you teach us?" The response came from Sarah Chen aboard the Lazarus. "Captain, we've been waiting to hear those words for 3 months. Welcome to the future." One by one, ships began breaking away from the enemy fleet. Species that had joined the hegemony out of fear found their courage and chose hope instead. Within hours, the great alliance against humanity had crumbled as its members chose transcendence over destruction. The Overmind's 1,000 voices screamed in rage and despair. "Traitors! Cowards, we offered you dominion over the galaxy." "And we choose to grow beyond the need for dominion," replied Captain Vextara. Her ship was already changing, its crystal hull flowing into new configurations as architect technology merged with Zephyrian design. "We choose to become more than we were." The Vorth hegemony found itself alone, their biomechanical forms surrounded by former allies who had chosen evolution over stagnation. The collective consciousness that had ruled them for millennia faced a choice it had never imagined having to make. "You can join us," Dr. Vasquez offered gently. "Your biological mastery combined with consciousness enhancement could create wonders we haven't even imagined. But you have to let go of the need to control others." The Overmind was silent for long moments. Then slowly its 1,000 voices spoke in unison. We do not know how to be anything other than what we are." "Then we'll teach you," said Marcus Webb. "That's what we do. We help species become more than they thought possible." The great war that might have consumed the galaxy ended not with victory or defeat, but with transformation. The hegemony's biomechanical cities began to change, their collective consciousness slowly learning to value individual thought alongside group unity. Years passed. The galaxy that emerged from humanity's awakening was unrecognizable from what had come before. Species that had fought for millennia worked together on projects that spanned star systems. The Zephyrians used their crystal technology to build living computers that thought in harmony. The former hegemony developed biological art forms that could be felt as well as seen. Dr. Cathara, now serving as humanity's first alien ambassador, stood in the orbital gardens above Earth, watching ships from 100 worlds arrive daily. Children of different species played together in impossible gardens, while their parents studied sciences that had been dreams only years before. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Marcus Webb as they watched a group of young architects teaching human children to paint with light itself. Giving up your advanced technology to help us catch up? Marcus smiled as he watched a Zephyrian child create a crystal sculpture that sang in harmonics no human ear could hear. We didn't give up anything, Cathara. We shared it. And in sharing it, we multiplied it. But you could have ruled the galaxy. Your technology was so far beyond our rule over what? Empty worlds full of resentful subjects? We tried that approach once long ago before our great sleep. It doesn't work. The only power worth having is the power to help others grow. A new voice joined their conversation. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now bearing the silver markings that showed she had undergone the full transcendence process. Besides, look what we gained in return. She gestured toward the garden where species from across the galaxy were working together to create new forms of art and science. Crystalline beings taught others to sing in mathematical harmonies. Gas-based life forms shared techniques for existing in multiple states simultaneously. Former warriors had become gardeners of impossible beauty. We sought to preserve humanity, Dr. Vasquez continued. Instead, we discovered something better, the chance to help the galaxy become more than the sum of its parts. Commander Sarah Chen materialized beside them, her enhanced form barely solid in the normal dimensional space. The old galaxy ran on scarcity and fear. Species fought because they believed survival meant someone else had to lose. But we've proven that's not true. How? Cathara asked. By showing that the universe has room for everyone to grow. Energy is infinite if you know how to access it. Space is limitless if you can step outside normal dimensions. Life itself can be enhanced beyond current limitations.